Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. We have been so honored to have so many incredible, impossible guests on this show, and it never ceases to amaze me, the people that we get the opportunity and the honor to meet and have conversations with and learn from throughout not just this show, but everything we get to do with Impossible Performance. And today is one of the episodes I've been most excited about for a very long time, since we first heard her speak in September at a nationwide children's Breakfast of Champions, honoring all of the patient champions featured in the 2024 Columbus Marathon. She is a cancer survivor. She is a loving wife. She is a powerful and strong woman, and she has one of the most natural speaking gifts that I've ever encountered. She speaks with emotion and with passion, and she carries that forward into everything she does in her daily life. We are so excited for you guys to have the opportunity to hear her story, to learn from her lessons and her mindset and everything she's encountered in her life, and especially for you to hear her perspective on some of the immensely impossible challenges she has faced in such a short time over the last several years. So with that, we are very excited to welcome Allison Berry onto the podcast. Thank you for being here, Allie.
Thank you so much for that introduction. That was, I appreciate that a lot. I'm excited to share my side of the story and what I have overcome and learned from my two journeys, which are very different in my mind, and I keep them completely separate. So I'm excited. Yeah.
We learn more and more, especially throughout this show, as well as our time just talking and interacting with people, that battling cancer is something that is entirely unique every single time. Mm-hmm. Like it's wild to me how everybody's story and everybody's challenges and everybody's process, not even to mention the treatment and everything that goes along with that, can be so different. Yet at the same time, there's these overarching similarities that I think connect people who have battled cancer or have had loved ones who have battled cancer that you just can't always fully understand unless you've been there. And so that's why we've been honored to have so many survivors on the show, because we've learned so much from all of the survivors we brought on, and we've learned so much from everybody that has like taught us and shown us their stories. And even though they may not exactly relate to ours, they're totally unique in their own sense, and we can gain so much understanding of our own journey through theirs. So we're excited to sit down and chat with you today and just learn from you and be able to show all of the amazing talents you have to everybody that listens to this, because we know it's going to help a lot of people. And that's, at the end of the day, like we chatted about at lunch today, that's at the end of the day, one of our biggest goals with all of this is to help people who are battling through those situations today, like what we battled through so long ago, that we desperately needed help back then. And so we're excited to be able to offer comfort and solace and insight and understanding to all of those people today who are battling those exact same circumstances. But I know you guys are from Zanesville, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And were you born and raised in Zanesville? Have you always lived there, or is this just kind of a new place for you?
Yep. We were both born and raised in Zanesville.
Okay, yeah. Nice. And that's not too far from Columbus.
No, just an hour. I actually work in Columbus. So.
Oh, okay. Do you make that commute every day?
Yeah. Yeah.
I did that for a year back when I was in school, and it's 70 you take to and from, man. It can be a tough commute sometimes.
I love it. I take it as like a time in the morning to just like have to myself and listen to my music and think. So I like it. Yeah. I know that's kind of weird because I've never met anyone else that likes it. So.
Well, it's definitely a lot of positivity to bring from that, and a lot of growth and a lot of forward drive you can take from that. I actually did the same thing that year I was driving to and from Columbus from Zanesville. just podcasts. Like I never got through more podcast hours and more audiobook hours than I did that year. And it is nice how it's like you get this whole time totally blocked off to like start and end your day, and make sure you show up and leave in the right frame of mind. So there's definitely a lot to be gained there. But do you ever dive into like a lot of podcasts or audiobooks or?
I'm a big music listener.
Okay.
I love 2010s.
There you
Actually, when I was receiving my radiation, they're always like, "What kind of music do you like to listen to?" I'm like, 2010 hits. And I'll sing every
exactly
song.
That.
Every song. They're like, "Oh, that's pretty unique."
I love that. So like, who's some of your favorite artists?
Well, my favorite song was when I was going through radiation, and this was one of the hardest parts of my life. I just remember Till I Collapse, Eminem was going on, and I was just singing it because I was like, this is I'm like, I'm gonna do this till I collapse, literally. But I love Eminem, Katy Perry. It's just like all of the music that we, in this Gen Z grew up with. We'll forever love it. So
yeah, that's awesome. What is it? Does it remind you of just like an earlier period of your life, or what is it specifically that speaks to you?
I don't know. Just like pop today is so.
It's very different.
Yes, it's just about money and sex and drugs, and I just feel like the 2010s is just like not in that way. So I just resonated with it. I love the beat. I love the positivity. I don't know, just in childhood.
It's amazing how powerfully music can speak to the soul.
Yes.
And I was fortunate to have a lot of opportunity in school to do research with music therapy on patients who had Alzheimer's dementia. And some of the most like mind-blowing, bone-chilling stories I have are from that time. People who hadn't remembered their family's names in decades, but they were avid musicians when they were younger, and you play them some of their favorite songs or some of the pieces that really meant a lot to them, and just you'd watch these layers unfold, and you'd watch their true personality come out. And it was just mind-blowing every time. But I think music we don't even fully understand how powerful it can be to not just ourselves mentally, but emotionally and spiritually and physically to a point as well. So I'd imagine that's probably like a big piece that helped carry you through a lot of your treatment. Yeah,
I totally agree with that. It's going through the scans and the radiation. I listen to the exact same music every single time, and I'm able to, because I know all the words, and I'm able to. It does take me back to when times were simpler, So.
Yeah, and that's a powerful piece. And you mentioned people like Eminem as well, who I still argue is maybe the greatest lyricist to ever live.
For sure.
For sure. The power he has with words and how words can be so important because they are our only true tools to like convey the emotion and the feelings and all the things that we have to others.
And I would argue I'm a pretty good rapper, but I didn't tell you that.
Well, we'll have to save a part of the podcast later for that. Demonstrate. We've got the audio mics right here. It's ready to go. So that's awesome. I mean, if you're a good speaker too, you definitely be a good rapper. I feel like the two go hand in hand.
Yeah. I already told you I'm terrible at taking compliments, so you can say all you want, but I can't take it.
Well, we'll keep trying to convince you one of these days. So take us back, because you were 18 when you were first diagnosed?
Yes.
And I know you've got a pretty heartfelt story that you've got a little bit of vengeance around that time. What happened during that time?
So I would say we'll go back like 9 months before I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
I just noticed a little bit of stomach pain here and there, but I never really dealt with anything like that. So I just kind of chalked it up as, I'm going to college. I'm in a different place. I'm eating different food. I'm not at home. Maybe it's just kind of that, or maybe I'm stressing myself out. So I kind of mentally talked myself out of anything being wrong, and I let it progress, and it just kept getting worse and worse until at night, I would be in so much pain that I would wake up screaming. And I would just pace my dorm halls until I felt that I could go back to sleep. Or I would listen to music, like, you know, the sleep. I don't know. You can go on Spotify or Apple and you can listen to sleep.
Calm your mind.
And, like whale sounds or, you know, thunderstorms or whatever. Just something to not think about the pain. So it finally got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. Like, I had a oral comm speech that I had to give. And I stood up in front of the whole class, and I had my arm over my stomach because I hurt so bad, and I was hunched over. And that's when I knew that at that moment I should probably get some help. So I left my speech and I called my dad, and he was like, well, maybe it's your appendix or maybe it's your spleen or something like that. Can you drive home? And I was like, yeah. So I drove home, went to a local hospital. We spent 4 hours in the emergency department, just, you know, waiting for somebody to take us back. And we get back there, they want to do a scan, and then it's kind of history at that point. They found the tumor. They didn't know at the beginning that it was a tumor, because obviously being so young, they don't automatically assume that it's cancer. But it ended up being a softball size embryonal rhabdomyosarcoma. And I was really disappointed in myself, because with my disease, if you catch it earlier, the better percentage you have. And to know that I waited so long because I thought I was doing myself a favor, that eats me up. That eats me up inside, because I knew, you know, I wish I would have went earlier, but I can't change that now. So, but basically I went through the first time. I did all the treatments. I did 9 months of chemotherapy, intense chemotherapy, 16 treatments of full body radiation, 15 treatments of proton therapy, which is just very localized radiation. And then I did 6 months of oral chemo, and I was considered in remission. And then I was in remission for a year and a half. And unfortunately, it came back. So I have just finished my second round of 9 months of intense chemotherapy, and next week I'm going to get my radiation, but I'm technically in remission again, so I'm really excited about that and happy. And there's so many parts in there that I have skipped over and missed, because I could talk for days and still miss stuff. Just cancer is a terrible disease, and everybody's experience is so different. But my main goal when I go to the hospital now is to meet as many people as I can, talk to as many people as I can, because, you know, meeting people has given me the greatest positive experience ever. I love going to the hospital and meeting these young kids that they haven't seen anybody that's overcome this disease. So I love being that outlet for them and telling them that there is a future. And, you know, it is hard, but I love being that for them.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how, especially with those really little kids, like I'd say maybe the like 3 to 7 year olds, like they're old enough to know that something's not right, but not really old enough to fully understand what they're battling. Yet you just see some of the most immense strength that you could ever fathom in those children's eyes. And they're looking to you like you're their hero and like you're their role model, and they want to be like you, and they want to beat cancer like you did. But man, for me, it was like, I was like, no, if I got to be like these kids, like if these little kids can battle everything they're battling and still have such a big smile on their face, still run around like little kids, you know, like I got to be strong for them.
I loved being that person, that outlet for around like 8 to 12-year-olds where they know what's going on. Like they know they lost their hair. They know that they're sick. But talking to them and showing them that there is life outside of this and going back to school, getting excited. I love just talking to them about their experiences. It's life-changing for me because being able to talk about that, words don't even have, I don't have the words to describe how that makes me feel. But it gives me the strength to continue on, like you said, like talking to them and like being that for them. That is just it's everything.
Yeah, it really is. And you know, we've always said on this show, we have this saying that your potential is your responsibility. And I think a lot of that saying stemmed from a lot of those times where I was in the hospital spending the time with the really young kids, or at least, you know, much younger than I was at the time. And it's because we have so much potential and so much capacity to help them, even though we're battling through challenging things ourselves. But I believe what you find is when you step outside of your own challenges and you realize not just what others are facing around you, but particularly your capacity to help others around you. And then you start making those moves and filling that role. And then you realize how much it actually helps you in your own battle. It gives you purpose, it gives you passion, it gives you something to fight for that's even greater than yourself. And I know for me, like that ended up just finding that level of potential within myself. You know, I may not have felt like I was even in a spot where I could help somebody else, but you go out and you do it and you find that potential in yourself. And then you realize like, oh wow, this is actually helping me along my journey too. This is giving me fuel to continue getting up and pushing forward and fighting and actually getting out of bed each day and moving each day. And so this is a responsibility I have to myself, but also to these young kids. And that can be true of anybody you may be influencing. This is a responsibility we hold to those around us that are battling through their own challenges. And it's going to help them immensely, but it's also going to help us move forward as well. Yeah. I think when you can get that kind of purpose for your life that goes beyond just yourself and your own challenges and your battles, it can compound pretty quickly into a pretty incredible drive. And so I'm not glad for what you've had to face, but I'm glad that you had the opportunity to see that and realize that and pursue that earlier on.
Yeah. I love how you, I feel like you segued me right into this, but I had a friend that I met up at the hospital, and when I went through my first treatment, it was during COVID, so you weren't allowed to leave your room, and that's really hard when you're alone with, you know, only your mom or a couple other people, because you're only allowed to have 4 people the whole time, 4 visitors. Wow. And so I had a young girl that was my age, 18, that had got diagnosed her first year of college, just like me. And she had come over to me and offered me a cookie. And she was like, "Do you want to meet in the parent lounge?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so we go later, because obviously when not everybody's there, we don't get in trouble. So we waited till late. Around that hospital security. Yeah, we waited till late and we met up. And she let me go on and on about, you know, the pain that I was suffering and like my neuropathy and all my blood transfusions. And I just kept complaining. And then she spoke, and one of the first things that she said to me after I, you know, complained on and on was I was given 3 months to live. And I sunk like foot in mouth. I didn't even know what to say. Like, I just complained to her about all the symptoms that I was having, but I still have a chance at life and she doesn't. How's that fair that I did that to her? Like, I could not explain how I felt in that moment. And I still feel how I feel right now talking about it. I just feel terrible. So she was the reason initially that I had that change in heart about this journey. I mean, she knew that she was dying, but however, she still wanted to be my friend. That's just a wild concept. Like, you know you're dying, but you still want to make a friend. In my mind, that's crazy. But to me, it like you said, it changed everything for me, because she was still getting up. She had a bucket list that she wanted to complete. I was like, wow, this girl is everything.
Yeah.
And so she's since passed on, but I think of her all the time.
I've always said the strongest people in the world will find the most opportunity in the greatest challenge. And it's sometimes our natural programming, but I think there's just so many times where when faced with a challenge, we can allow ourselves to get beaten down and feel like victims of the situation, that it's not fair. Yet you hear those situations of people who are truly given some of the worst challenges, the hardest challenges, the worst circumstances, yet all they see is opportunity. Just like your friend there.
Yeah.
She saw the opportunity, like, I got 3 months of life left. I can do all these things. I can still make friends. I can still grow. I can still, whatever it is she was chasing. And I think that is one of the greatest lessons we could ever learn and take forward with us in our own lives when you face challenge every single day, because we all face challenge every day. Yeah. It's just that, try to build that into your default programming of, where is the opportunity here? This looks bad. This looks hard from the outside, but where is the opportunity? What can I do with this situation? Because if there's one thing we've learned, it's you can always find opportunity, or specifically you can create opportunity in this challenge. And you can actually create so much opportunity and so much positivity that you start to develop a worldview that you're almost thankful for the challenges you faced.
I agree. Yeah.
And that can sound pretty radical to say, like, I'm thankful I had cancer, or I'm thankful I lost a leg, or, whatever it may be. But if you can get to that point and truly feel that within your own heart, it's not that it's not that you would ever wish that challenge on somebody else, but you're thankful for all the opportunity that came from those challenges.
I feel the exact same way. I feel sometimes people look at me like I'm insane when I'm like, I'm so grateful that I went through this change in my life. I view life so different now. I'm grateful for the experiences I have. I try to get out as much as I can. I live really full. I love with all my heart. I worry less. I say what I want to say. It's changed my life a lot. But I mean, like you said, you don't ever wish that on anyone, but life is different now.
Yeah. And what's cool about it is that so many people can learn exactly what you've learned without having to go through the challenge that you went through. And that's why we do the show. That's why we have the business. That's why we do everything we do, because we can take these lessons, all these amazing life-changing lessons you've learned along your journey, and give them to everybody listening without them having to go through that challenge, and it may not like solidify it in the exact same way as actually experiencing that challenge, but it at least exposes people to these ways of thinking, and it gives them tools and it gives them resources to use during the times that they face challenge in their own life. And it helps be a little proactive rather than reactive, so that if somebody can keep that in their mind, like, when I face challenge, I'm going to find opportunity in it. Yeah. If you have that in your mind and then you face a challenge, you're going to be much more likely to turn that situation around a lot more quickly than you would the other way around. So that's why we're honored to have people like you on here. So you were 18 when you were diagnosed, correct?
Yes.
And that's actually the same exact age I was diagnosed at.
It's such a different time in your life too. You're like, I'm an adult and I can do whatever I want. I'm going to college. I'm making a life for myself, making a name for myself. And then you get that bomb. You're like, what do you do with this?
I'd be interested to hear, like, what was your experience like immediately after diagnosis and then starting into treatment? Like, what kind of, because I'd just be curious to see how it lines up with my own experiences.
Yeah, sure. So, right after diagnosis, I was pretty sick. So, like I said, I waited extremely too long. I waited to the point where the tumor was so large that it was crushing my liver and I had a huge blood clot. And I started into the treatment with severe pain. Like right out of the gate, I had, pain I've never experienced in my life. Still to this day, it's probably one of the worst things I've ever experienced still. But I wasn't sad initially. I had a really good support, like a good community behind me. I built my Allie's Battle page. I had a lot of people pray for me and keep me in their thoughts and prayers and send me gifts. And so I felt really loved. And it wasn't, the chemo, it's so funny. It's not hard initially. Like, you're like, oh, like, it's pretty easy at first. You're like, oh, okay, like, I can deal with this. But it compiles. It compiles very quickly. You're like, the first treatment, you're like, okay, yeah, I got this. And then by the end, you're like, I can't walk. I'm walking with a cane. I can't get out of the bath myself. I can't drive myself. I've lost everything. But initially, I didn't feel like I had lost everything. I still felt like, oh, I can do this. Like I had that. It didn't beat the will out of me yet. I still had my willpower. But going through this the first time, it beat me down so hard and stripped me of everything I thought I was. It beat my soul, like just down to the point of I'm asking, who am I? What do I even like? What is my personality? Because I sat on the couch and I just withered away. And a lot of people ask me like, is it really painful, like dealing with cancer? Like physical, like they ask physically, like, what is it like? And I'm like, really the physical pain isn't even half of it. The mental pain that you put yourself through, 10 times harder. Being able to look at yourself in the mirror and recognizing who you are, terrible. That feeling of looking and you're like, I don't recognize this person that I see. Building that back up took so long. I would say the first time losing all that, not recognizing myself, it took me the whole year and a half that I was cancer free to be able to look in the mirror and be like, I know who I am as a person. I can name 5 adjectives about myself that I can describe myself. And I know that is true about me. And I like who I am. I resonate with who I am. So going into the second treatment, that helped me so much because I knew who I was. I knew that I wasn't going to let this disease take that away from me. I was so determined that the second treatment wouldn't take what I built. Because when you go through college and you think you know who you are, you think you know the things you like, you think you know what you want to be, but it's really like what your environment told you wanted to be, like what your school taught you, who your friends were, who your family said that they thought you should be. But going through cancer allowed me to find that person that I would be proud of. And now I'm able to look at myself in the mirror and be like, wow, I have really overcame, I'm proud of myself. And that's really hard. That is so hard.
That's a really profound point you bring. I'm so glad you brought that up because it's something I think I've never talked enough about on the show before. I can't remember any other guest that we've discussed specifically this with. And it's interesting that we had cancer like pretty much at the same time in our lives. And the experiences are very similar. I don't think I had as much physical pain up front initially as what you had. But I also had a different cancer in a different location. But a lot of the emotional things you talk about, I resonate 100% with. The feeling of those first few rounds of treatments where it's like, oh, this isn't so bad at all. Like, I got this. This, you know, like,
it's so funny.
It's not fun, but like, you got this. I have vivid memories of like, cause I was still actually in high school when I was diagnosed. It was the second half of my senior year. So I was still in high school, and you talk about having like senioritis. Once you have cancer and it's like February of senior year, you really have senioritis. So like, I was really bad about, I'd go straight up to my teachers and I'd be like, hey, I'm not going to come to class today. I'm going to go talk to this other teacher in their room while they're on planning. And looking back, it probably wasn't the best move for me, but it did help me a lot emotionally. So I just remember crutching through the hallways. Because mine was in my ankle, obviously. Once I was diagnosed, I was not allowed to use that ankle because they were worried about the tumor rupturing, which I didn't fully appreciate at the time. And I did use that ankle more than I should have. But I remember crutching through the hallways and like feeling that like fiery feeling in your lungs when you're like kind of out of shape and your heart like really pounding. And I'm like, yeah, this was after like my first or second round of chemo. So I was like, yeah, this is definitely like affecting my cardio system a little bit. But I was like, it's not too bad. Like, I don't feel horrendous. And then for me, the major turning point was after my amputation. Like the 3 rounds of treatment I got before my amputation, not too bad, manageable. Like, it sucked. It wasn't fun, but like, I felt like I could make it. And then I had the amputation, which for me was actually the best part of 2013 because I got to be off chemo for like 3 weeks, which was just like the greatest gift I'd ever known. And so then I come back after the amputation and the chemo just obliterates me. Like, it was a totally different story.
Once you're down, it beats you.
Oh yeah, it does. And then what you described towards the latter half is exactly what I felt. So like February through end of May, June, pretty okay. June 10th, amputation, start back chemo in July. July through August, I survive. And then like at the end of August, I'm completely like gone. And I've told people a lot that it really feels like it just steals your humanity from you.
Yeah.
And especially at a time in your life when you're like this 18-year-old kind of between the high school and college age, you know, that's a time where a lot of people are really figuring out who they are and like, what's the world ahead of me? Who can I be? You know, what's available to me? And then you have this like almost like identity crisis at the same time of you're not even just questioning who you are anymore. It's like, you don't even know if you're human anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember so much of the time laying in bed and wondering, like, it was my first realization that like there are things worse than death. And like, that's how I felt towards some of those latter days. And that's what prompted me to bring my team in, like I talked to you about with Dr. Yeager and Stacy. We found out we shared a lot of the same providers. Bring them in and talk to them like, hey, is there a point where this gets too dangerous? Like, this chemo gets so bad that, you know, it's worse than the cancer. And to their credit, they heard me out and ended up saying, you know, there is a point that gets to, but we're not there yet, you know. And then I very nearly died the very next round, which is nobody's fault. It's just a unfortunate reality that you can face when you're going through treatment like that. But so I definitely am glad you brought that point up, because that is a truth of cancer treatment that I don't think is always talked about as much as it needs to be. Because I think for a lot of cancer patients, there's a lot of times where people want to see us doing well, and they want to see us happy, and they want to see us smiling. And so you always try to put that smile on no matter what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. You get very good at having a public persona and having a private persona, like almost too good at it. And I never realized that I was developing that until it was kind of too late. You know, whenever I was around people, around my doctors, anything, I'm always smiling, I'm always joking, I'm always doing whatever, no matter how sick I was. And then I you know, eventually I go through a lot of the infection, the bowel perforation, all those challenges, and I come out and I'm done with chemo. And then it's like, now it's like, I have no idea who I am.
Yeah. Like,
absolutely none. And at least back then, and I imagine probably the same for you, there was no transition of care. It's just like, you no longer have cancer. You're out on the streets. It's like, goodbye, see you. Like, you're done. And there's this time that I really battled where all of my internal conflict came from the fact that I'm cancer free now. I should be happy, but I'm not happy. Like, not even a little bit, not even remotely. Yet I'm still trying to pretend to everybody in my life that I am happy. That created a lot of internal dissonance that led me down some pretty dark paths and ultimately took me a very long time to recover from. But I think that we don't necessarily recognize enough how much chemotherapy and all forms of cancer therapy, radiation, surgery, they can strip you not just your identity, but your humanity. And the trouble or the tough part becomes then, well, how do we move forward from that? How do we find a path? Like you said, it took you 1.5 years to realize that again, and how much of a difference it made in this second battle now. So like for people going through that and feeling in that spot where they're losing that humanity, they're losing that identity, like what kind of things can we focus on to try to maintain or hold on to or build that as much as possible?
Yeah. So for me, as soon as I finished intense therapy my first time, I got a job because I was like, I know that I can't go to college and take care of myself. So I need to figure out financially how I can support myself. And I think it'll be good. My thought process was, I think it'll be good for me to have something to care about other than, worrying about recovering. So I got a job and I tried really hard to immerse myself in this culture that I've never even heard of, basically. So I work for a construction company, natural gas, and I'm an 18-year-old girl, so you can imagine I have no idea what that entailed. But I fully immersed myself in it. I learned about it. I took classes. I talked with all my coworkers, and I'm the youngest female. Well, I'm the only female and the youngest employee that works there. And it truly gave me a purpose. And that was so crucial to, finding something other than the hurt I was feeling and the lost. So there was that. And then, like we talked about earlier about, working out, I didn't really fall back in love with it until 6 months down the road after treatment, because it was so hard to look at myself in the mirror and watch myself do workouts when I looked so uncoordinated. It looked like I had never played a sport in my life. And I was very active. I mean, I did travel soccer. I was a captain for my soccer team, captain for my basketball team. I loved running. I ran the Columbus Half Marathon with my mom in 2021. So I was very active, and it was so disappointing to know that, like, I don't have any of that. I barely can walk. So 6 months after I really started to get into working out again. I put myself into therapy. I went to my doctors and I said, can you refer me to get physical therapy? Because I need help working out. I can't do this on my own. I don't even know where to start, because it's hard to hold 2-pound weights in my wrists right now. Like, I need help. And I think, honestly, it makes a difference if you ask for help, knowing when you need help. And that's hard, especially for people that, like me, that don't like to ask for help. Admitting that you're like, I can't do it myself. That's hard. But that helped me tremendously. Going to therapy, I did therapy for 4 months, relearned how to run, relearned how to, get my balance back, because that was one thing that, like, I couldn't even barely take a shower without anybody in the room with me, because when I closed my eyes, I fell backwards. So getting my balance back, getting my mojo back, getting my car back, I lost my independency. That was another thing, was I couldn't be on my own. I couldn't take care of myself. I didn't trust myself to be home alone by myself, because being 18, 19, 20 years old, not having the ability to get in a car and go get a coffee or go hang out with friends. That's, what do you do with your life at that point? I mean, when you're that age, you think that means everything, but it doesn't. But to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't hang out with my friends. I'm a loser. I'm a loner. Nobody's going to want to come and hang out with me, which is so silly. I don't know why I thought that way, but your brain goes dark places when you're in trouble. So yes, if you were struggling to figure out your purpose, I would really suggest admitting that you need help is a really good place to start.
Yeah. And that it's okay to accept and receive help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because going back to when you talk about your diagnosis, like you mentioned how you were so frustrated with yourself that like you pushed it off for so long, like asking or getting it looked at. But that never came from a place of like, you just didn't care about it or you were lazy or anything like that. That came from a place of you didn't want to be a burden, or you didn't want to overreact, or, you're really tough so you can handle the pain and you can deal with the pain and you can push through it. That's the thing that a lot of athletes and young kids that age and people who are just strong-willed, that's an aspect we all share, so you can't necessarily be frustrated with yourself because it's not, well, it's an easy thing to say, but like, you didn't do anything wrong. You just were being strong-willed. It's not like you were trying to be lazy or anything like that. But when you have that kind of mindset, it's very hard to say, I need help.
Yes.
Or and beyond that, even to accept help that's already been offered to you. Mm-hmm. Yet it's something that can be so crucial. And especially in these times where you feel stripped of your humanity, you feel stripped of the things you used to have, you've got to have some starting place along the path. And so even if the help that's offered to you isn't like the perfect thing, the thing that's going to change everything for you, it at least gives you some place to start. Yeah. And I feel like in so many of these journeys where it feels completely impossible to move forward, if you just have a starting place and then the ability to start, that is the very hardest step. Once you get any level of momentum or any level of inertia, it becomes very easy to continue moving in that direction. But it's knowing when to start, knowing where to start. And I think particularly it's having enough value for yourself to allow yourself to start is another one of the most difficult points. But you bring up the just even the simple things that can become so challenging. I remember another one of the vivid memories I have around that time towards the end when it was the very hardest was I'd actually gone up to Children's that morning because my hemoglobin was down to like a 6. And of course, you like when you get down that low, you can't even stand up. You're going to like pass out. And so then I get 3 blood transfusions, brings my hemoglobin up to like a 10 or 12. And I'm feeling like cloud 9. Like it's amazing how quickly you can go from being in like the worst shape to what you feel is the best shape possible just after a few blood transfusions. And so I come back down home and I couldn't believe it. I actually had enough energy to dress myself and to get in the car. And I went to dinner with one of my friends. It was actually JD. Went to Cheddar's in town. And I just remember coming home from that. I'm like, I cannot believe I had the energy to do this. Like, this is just like the greatest day. It's amazing like what the mind can adapt to and what it can get used to. And how everything can be so relative and how you can lose appreciation for those types of moments until you realize how crucially valuable they are.
I love that you said that word. That reminds me of the greatest thing that I have learned from this experience is gratitude. I mean, you don't understand how grateful. So let me step back. When I was going through my first treatment, and I received full body radiation, they told me that I wouldn't start having side effects until 2 weeks in. Lies. I started immediately.
Yeah.
Like the first day, I was like, I do not feel right. Like, this is not right.
Yeah.
This should not be how it is. And they told me that when you receive chemotherapy and radiation at the same time, the chemotherapy is amplified. So fortunately for me, that meant that my bowel just went into, I mean, it was terrible. I got to the point where I couldn't even ride in a car. I got to the point where I couldn't keep anything down, that I was peeing acid. I thought I had a UTI, but it was actually I was peeing acid because, like, it was terrible. It was the worst thing. But I had let myself get so sick. Like what you said, again, I was so strong-willed that I didn't admit that something was wrong. So I let it go. I let it go. I let it go. To the point where I'm no longer keeping down food. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. And I'm like, I need to go to the hospital. So I go to the hospital. We found out that initially, Dr. Yeager refused to give me a scan because all my vitals were fine. And he was just like, oh, it's just nausea from, your treatment. And it's normal to have nausea with radiation. And thankfully for my dad, he advocated for me, and he was like, no, this is not normal. She's not 8, and if one thing about me, I will eat. So that even if I am nauseous, I'll eat. So that was really, they gave me the scan, and Dr. Yeager came back to my dad and was like, thank you, you saved her life. She was about to have a bowel perforation. If we would have waited 2 more days, it would have been really bad. So she would have went septic. And I had to be on TP and lipids, which is basically where they feed you through your blood, and you're not allowed to drink or eat anything. So you're NPO. I was like that for 3 weeks. That teaches you so much about the gratitude of eating. You have no idea how lucky you are just to go out and eat with your friends. And then fortunately for me, after that, I developed a disorder with my pancreas that doesn't allow me to eat. Well, at the time, we didn't understand what was wrong, but basically when I was eating, nothing was getting digested. So I was malnourishing myself. And I wasn't able to eat out with my friends. I wasn't able to eat with my family. I had to cook separate meals. That was really miserable for me. To not be able to connect with my family like that and go out to eat with them and sit and laugh and, have fun with my friends and not have to worry about what I'm eating. And I have so much gratitude that I'm able just to have the independency to go out and hang out with my friends. I can go to a restaurant now and order a salad, which I would have never thought is possible. Eat whatever I want. It's a blessing. But gratitude has taught me so much. Yeah. This journey, gratitude for sure.
It's really interesting because Austin, just a couple weeks ago, we released an episode. Austin recorded about gratitude, mm-hmm. and there's been a lot of really positive after this most recent battle for him. Time of reflection, mm-hmm. and focusing on gratitude for different parts of his life he's gotten to experience. Can you speak a little bit to how powerful that's been for you as well?
Yeah, because it's a concept that I never engaged with at all, mm-hmm. up until the diagnosis, which was for me at 26. So I was never sat down in a group I never sat down with a youth organization. I never sat down with, growing up, I was a part of a church, but if we did, it wasn't something that is actively being recalled within my mind. And so through university and through after university until the diagnosis, just never something that I contemplated that I needed to be active with to any standard at all. And after the first round of treatments, I wrote a lot, but it was still not about gratitude or gratefulness at all. And after this most recent relapse, where things went from 0 to 100 in terms of treatment, and to being the biggest challenge of fighting with death, death being so actively is so present within that moment. I come to find that gratitude was not only something that I needed to be more cooperative with, it was something that needed to be it was a lovely dance that I found myself in with gratitude over the past couple of months.
I love that you said that you're okay. I love that you said that your first time you didn't have the gratitude, because I agree. That first time you're like, why me? Why this? Why that? This shouldn't happen to me. This isn't fair. Like, all of the things negative, I feel the first time. That's how I felt. Just negative, all negative. This time, I look at it like, wow, I'm able to still do things. Like, I still have the ability to walk. I can eat. I can go to the mall. I can meet with my friends. I can do whatever I want. But the last time, I looked at what was taken from me, not what I still had. And so I think that's really powerful in speaking to someone that hasn't gone through this situation, to speak on, be grateful for what you have. And I don't really think it's hard to even speak on this when you haven't gone through something being taken away like that, because you can say that you're grateful for something, but you really don't know how grateful you are until it's gone. So I agree with you. Like, my relapse was when it clicked for me. Like, I still have all this. So,
yeah. And I think the biggest part of that, because it's hard to just take somebody who, there's going to be people listening to this who are just diagnosed or battling through that first time, where it's like you're just in that negative place that's so hard to crawl out of. And it's one thing for them to hear, or for us to tell them, like, gratitude is such a huge part of this. It's another thing to actually adopt that and feel it. But I found, for me, one of the most helpful paths forward with that is something you've already mentioned, actually, and that's creating purpose. You talked about how immediately after your first battle, you went out and got a job. So you didn't even have to be in a place of gratitude yet, but you were able to find purpose, and something inside of you was able to tell you how important that was going to be for your journey moving forward. And I think we talk about purpose, passion and purpose. We throw those hand in hand all the time. I think purpose is something you can establish even if you're not in a place of gratitude. Even if you're in a negative place, you can establish purpose for yourself and for your life. And that will be able to carry you to a more positive place, a place where you find passion. And from there, you can develop things like gratitude. I think that's something where you can you can at least be actionable. So even a time where you may be battling through cancer, maybe for the first time, maybe for the 4th or 5th time, you may be in one of these situations where it just seems like how can this even be possible? How did this happen to me? Why is this happening to me? I think the best thing you can do is find some level of purpose in your life. Some purpose you can serve to another person, or maybe a group of people, whomever it might be. Some level of purpose for your life that gives you a reason to move forward. We actually had, and this makes me really think of a guest that we had on earlier on this show. And she's one of the most strong individuals I've ever encountered in my life. And she lost her daughter to cancer. She was very young, and her daughter was not supposed to live very long, and they ended up having 4 years with her. And we mentioned earlier about how you can create opportunity for situations and you almost become grateful for them. I think that applies to a lot of challenges, but I don't even know if that applies to all challenges, because I can't imagine there's some challenges that are so difficult that you just can't create gratitude for them. But even in those challenges, like losing a child, this woman, Tracy, has still created so much purpose from that. She's built an entire nonprofit organization that has served thousands and given hundreds of thousands of dollars to kids battling cancer and to families going through this. And so while, and I don't want to ever speak for her, while you may not ever be able to create gratitude for a situation, although a lot of them you can, there are some things where even if you can't get to that point with it, you can still create purpose from it. And the positivity you bring from all of that purpose at least gives you the comfort and the solace within your heart to know that even though the most horrendous, atrocious things can be happening in your life, you've brought positive influence from it, and you've been able to help so many people from it. And she talked about how she knows her daughter would just be so proud of all the work she's doing and everything she's able to, all the kids she's able to help because of what her daughter taught her. And I think back to Tracy so much, especially now since becoming a father myself. And I just think, man, what strength it would take to live with so much perseverance and so much passion, so much purpose, that you could go from a situation like she faced and still build so much good, still serve so many others, and still create purpose from it. And so it just serves as a reminder to me that purpose can be such a powerful thing, even in the moments where we can't just make ourselves feel gratitude. You can't just make yourself feel happy. At least you can find some level of action in finding purpose. Yeah.
I loved how you said that, even people going through this and then this is their first time. If I had, that's what I strive to be, is somebody that I needed initially when I was going through it this first time. And if I had somebody to tell me, it can always be worse. You are going through this and you still have these things. You still have the opportunity of life. You have a percentage. Hold that. Give space for that, Don't look at all these bad things that are going on.
Absolutely.
So I love that you said, even going through the first time. I know it wasn't for me that my relapse, that I was able to hold on to that gratitude, but for someone going through it the first time, if I had someone telling me, hey, you still have that opportunity of life. So that's something to be grateful for, and a purpose, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's so many emotions that can come, not just with cancer or a cancer diagnosis, but with tragedy of any sort. There's so many emotions you're going to have, you're going to experience. You're going to have anger, you're going to have fear, you're going to have confusion. For me, actually, when I was first diagnosed, I felt a lot of numbness. I had a lot of nothing to hold on to.
I agree.
And that can be such a weird place to be. But I think that all of these emotions you take in and you feel, it's hard to almost, yes, there's negative and positive frames of mind, and not just frames of mind, but frames of emotion and spirituality and physicality, whatever it may be. But it doesn't necessarily make certain emotions good or bad. Mm-hmm. And I know that when you were first diagnosed, you had some anger and some questioning and confusion to work through. And it's, how can we take some of these emotions like anger and fear that we may feel, and how can we use them a little more positively to either find purpose or drive purpose or create a more positive outcome for ourselves?
So I would say my first time going through, I didn't channel those emotions properly. Mm-hmm. I let myself wither and sit and scroll on TikTok and social media, see all the girls in bikinis that look fabulous, have their hair, have their makeup. I was jealous. I was sad. I was angry, but I never used that. I feel really that this second time I took that anger of, I overcame so much hurt the first time. How did this happen to me again? And I really took that anger and I'm like, this is not going to happen how it happened the first time. That's not how it's going to be. I'm not letting it happen that way. And I channeled it to be a motivator, to not allow me to wither away, to not allow me to sit on the couch and do nothing. That's not who I wanted to be. I found who I am, and I'm going to hold on to that. I don't want to lose myself. I'm not letting this journey take that away from me. I know who I am, and the disease isn't going to affect that this time. So I channeled that anger into, my strength. It became my strength. It became why I'm strong. I'm not letting that I was so mad that it was trying to take that away from me again. I worked so hard to get that back. So I channeled it into, I don't know, maybe revenge a little, which is a bad quality, but I use it.
Yeah, it's like who's the revenge towards? It's towards the cancer.
Yeah,
you're not gonna hurt cancer's feelings. I don't care who you are. You're not gonna hurt cancer's feelings. So I think sometimes it's almost good. I think it's good to have an enemy to fight sometimes, and I think what determines whether that's a positive or a negative thing is just the enemy you choose. Mm-hmm. You can't choose. I feel like we can't choose another person as our enemy necessarily.
No, or yourself.
Yeah, or yourself, especially yourself. You can't make yourself your enemy and be able to fight yourself in a healthy way, But choosing these things to make your enemy, like choosing cancer as your enemy. Like,
it sounds so silly, but it really does work.
It can work. You just have to personify something to channel all of those emotions into. And I think you can create a lot of positivity from that in doing so. But I like how you said, the first time you didn't love what you did with all of that energy. And that the second time you had the frame of reference to be able to say, no, I'm still going to feel all of these things, but I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to channel it differently. And I think in doing that, you actually created a lot of purpose, but a lot of positive purpose. And that's why we love passion so much, because it's such a powerful emotion, but it's really hard to describe. Like, passion can come from so many things. It can come from love. It can come from anger. It can come from fear. And really, I think passion is just the purest form of emotion. It's something that can drive you forward and at the same time help you drive others forward. And the source almost doesn't matter so long as it's serving a positive purpose for yourself and those around you. And one thing we've definitely felt since the moment we first heard you on stage, earlier or in last year, was that we could just feel the passion coming from you. Do you think your passion is something you've always had, or is it something that came from your battle from cancer? Is it something that maybe was just awoken in your battle with cancer?
I feel, like I said earlier, I'm just a very feely person anyway. Yeah. So I feel all those emotions. I always have. But this passion is just different.
Yeah.
And I could never imagine. I was actually terrible at oral comm, speaking in front of people. However, speaking about my cancer in front of people, no, I don't even get nervous. I don't even feel like an ounce of like, I'm going to do this wrong. I don't even question myself. I don't doubt. Like, I'm going to deliver this message, and that's what I'm going to do. And you're right. Like, the passion just takes over. I have a passion to tell my story, to help other people, to be the person that I needed. I really want to be that for somebody, and that's what I strive to do.
Yeah. And the greatest thing about passion is I think it's also one of the easiest emotions to instill in other people. Like when you were speaking, I told you, Austin and I are like sitting here looking at each other. We're like, man, she's got it. And we're just getting so freaking fired up because we could feel it coming out of you. And that's everything we gravitate toward, is that passion in whatever it is you're chasing or presenting or giving to others. We could feel that coming straight from you. And one of the things I love the most about the speech that you gave, and the part that sticks with me the most, is you talked about how after your first battle with cancer, you again had this moment where like it felt like your whole life was coming together. Like you had gotten engaged and were prepared to be getting married. You'd gained a lot of your identity back. You'd gained your humanity back. You felt like your life was set up to, okay, this was something I had to battle through, something I had to go through. It sucked, but I've learned a lot from it. I've built a lot from it, and now I can move forward and, leave this behind me, but use it to drive me forward. And then you're faced with a second diagnosis. What did it take? Because it does sound like you look at your second diagnosis as, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to create even more positivity from that. But what did it take to get yourself there? To go from that place where you had seemingly everything you could want for your life after facing such a tragic diagnosis, and here you've got to do it all again.
Okay, so I just came back from vacation and I had my scans. And these scans were weird because I'm sitting up in clinic waiting for a nurse to come in, and usually it doesn't take very long. And I sat there over an hour and I'm like, oh, something is not right. And so then Dr. Seti comes in and she looks at me and she's like, how's your life going? And she lets me go on and on about how great everything is, and like how I began to run again, and I can go out to eat with my friends. I started school back up. I'm working full time. I can go on and on about this. I bought a car. And then she's like, well, that makes it harder for me to say that your cancer came back. My world, I get a pit in my stomach just talking about it right now. I felt at that moment that everything was going to be the same. And I felt like all the work that I put into myself was going to just wither away. It's just the same as I had before. And that ate me up. That made me so mad. I think that's where the anger came from, is I put so much time, effort, thought into who I wanted to be and who I became, that like it just made me so mad. And I broke down and I cried, and to the point where Dr. Seti was like, what are you sad about? Like, what part makes you sad? And I'm like, the fact that I could lose everything again. Everything that I worked so hard for. And on the drive home, obviously I was sad. And I went to work the next day and I pretended like everything was normal. And it wasn't until I started my treatment up that I'm like, I'm going to make this different. I want this to be different. It was a choice, because I could have easily just sat back on the couch, stayed at home, made my mom quit her job again and watch me. No, I was like, I'm not quitting my job. I worked so hard to find a purpose, and this is it. So I'm not quitting my job. You know what? On top of that, I'm going to get a puppy. We we talked about this. My husband was not happy at me, but I got a puppy, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep working out. I'm gonna keep walking. I'm gonna put myself through therapy immediately, and that helped me a lot. That helped me tremendously. That was like probably one of the best decisions I could have, just keep me moving when I don't want to, each week I just go to therapy just to keep me moving. I walk as much as I can. It was really a choice that I had, and I think I made the right one. I lived through, through this hardship. I had fun. I mean, honestly, it was kind of scary to end the chemo, because I'm like, I'm able to do this. I'm still living. I mean, hair is just hair. Even though I don't have it, nobody treats me any different. It wasn't until the last chemo that really hit me hard that I was like, okay, yeah, my body is too tired to continue. It needs to stop. But going through it this time, it just felt like a breeze compared to the first time. Yeah. And I dedicate that partially to my attitude and my drive to not let it be the same.
I would dedicate it almost wholly to that. And that's one mission that we have that is so intense for us, that we feel so intense. We almost get violent about it. Not like actually, but just in our intent, because you said one phrase there that is everything to this situation. And you said it was a choice. And I want us to sit with that for a minute, because no matter who you are listening to this right now, no matter what situation you're facing, it can be the most atrocious, egregious of situations that we couldn't even fathom us speaking here. But I promise you, you always have a choice. And that choice is in how you move forward. And that choice may not change the outcome of what you're facing, but it will change everything about who you are while you're facing it. And in doing so, it will change the impact you have. It will change the perspective you have. And ultimately, it will change everything for yourself and for everyone else moving forward from this situation. Because all power follows responsibility. And that's something I think we don't focus on enough these days. When you get into that victim mindset of, why me? Why is this happening? Like, this isn't fair. All of these things. Whenever you're in that mindset, you're looking to place blame and responsibility externally. And you can do that. And maybe it's true. Maybe somebody else is at fault for whatever situation you're facing. And no matter how true that is, you can still take responsibility of the situation. If you look at this and say, yes, this isn't fair. It's not fair that I have cancer. It's not fair that I should have to go through this again, even though all of these things are going right for me. If you can take that and look at that and accept that, but then say, I'm still going to take responsibility for my actions, for myself, for my choices moving forward, then you give yourself all the power over the situation.
Yeah.
And so that would have definitely, well, I guess I would ask you, did you make that choice before or after you made the choice to be a patient champion in this year's marathon?
So the first thing I did when I got diagnosed the first time was sign up to be a patient champion. So literally I looked at my application and it was, you know, oh, they haven't decided if they're going to do radiation yet or if surgery's an option. Like, it was fresh.
Yeah.
And it was actually one of the things that I'd wanted to do for a really long time, because I felt like it was a really full circle moment. And I remember running the marathon and being so empowered by these children that I couldn't even fathom at the time what they experienced. And so to me, it was a total full circle moment. And so immediately when I was diagnosed the first time, I had applied to be a patient champion. I didn't get it for the year of 2023. So I just kind of thought that, like, I felt, you know, like they just throw away the applications, but they actually keep them. And so they had asked me to be a patient champion in 2024 May. So I hadn't been diagnosed yet. And I was like, I would love to be that outlet for children to see that they're able to overcome things, and like what their hair looks like when they come back, and that you're able to get a job and function normally. And like, even though you have challenges, you know, you find a way around them. Mm-hmm. And then boom, like I got the pictures and I had my hair still. And then
that's right. I remember. Yeah.
2 weeks after,
you have your hair in that picture. Yeah.
2 weeks after, I got diagnosed again. And, so I think it was a great outlet to show the perspective change and how it did change my view of the disease and how a journey should be, you know, how do you attack something that doesn't even seem attackable, that seems like it's going to, I mean, it can kill you, but you know, it's going to take your life. How do you approach something that, you know, I wanted to be that for somebody and show that it's possible. So I'm not glad, but like you said, I'm glad I went through it a second time and I had that perspective change. I was able to send the message out that, you know, attitude is everything. Don't let your disease define you. And because when people think of Allie, I don't want them to think the only thing is that she dealt with cancer very young. I want them to be like, she's strong, she's resilient, she's powerful, she speaks her mind, you know, things that I think about myself. I want that to be what people remember about me, not, oh, she's diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, and I think that came through so perfectly in your speech. And what's wild about that, I don't think I fully realized that you had already accepted to be a patient champion before you had your second diagnosis. Mm-hmm. That's really powerful. And so then you already have this piece that's, I guess this piece and this platform on your journey. And so that had to be something that gave you another sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
In that potential, like, hey, I've still got this I'm going to do. I can show people what is possible for them, what kind of potential they have in facing these circumstances.
And they don't typically allow people to be, so I was actually sad at first because they were giving people numbers and they kept just posting them because they have that Columbus Marathon page. Mm-hmm. And they just kept posting numbers and mile markers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there has to be like only 1 or 2 left. Did they forget about me? Did they say yes and not mean it? But they kept saying like, oh, we have something special planned. We just have to make sure that your care team is okay with it and that it's safe and that you're able to come and those sort of things. But I just kept in the back of my mind, I'm like, are they taking it back? Like, did they not mean this? And so later I found out that they had created this special position. It was called the start and finish line. And so I was the one extra person that they had asked to be on the marathon. They said they'll probably never do it again. But I really think that it was very powerful for runners to hear somebody that is going through something speak. I mean, I can imagine if I was, hadn't went through this and I was hearing somebody speak and like the power I would feel from them and wanting to almost avenge them. Like, I'm going to run this for you. Yeah. This is going to be for you. And that's what I tried to capture in my speech before the marathon was, you know, do this for the kids that, you know, are here to support you, but also the kids that didn't make it, that aren't here to tell their story. Run it for them. And I lost my train of thought.
What you described is absolutely perfect. I try to keep myself composed here because there's so much emotion I have tied to that start-finish line of that marathon. And I remember the first time I ran it wasn't like a life-defining moment in the sense that it would just like flip the switch and all of a sudden I was in this really dark place and now I'm in this really bright, happy place. But it was the singular moment that changed my direction. I was moving darker and darker and darker down that path, and it was the moment that said, hey, there's a different path you can take. And I started moving down that path, and that was in the 2017, the first time I did it. And then I came back and did it again in 2018, and then I got into lifting and mindset and leadership and business and discovering all the things that, you know, I could find potential in. And in 2022, I was actually set up to have a very successful year in powerlifting that year, and that's when I had that injury I told you about with my abdomen. And so after that surgery, I was able to reclaim my strength and see my potential pretty quickly after that, fortunately. But I knew that I needed time. I needed time to let my body rest and heal before I got into max effort powerlifting again, just to make sure that my body was totally solidified going forward. And at that time, I hadn't run the marathon in several years. It's been 4 years since I'd run the marathon. And I hadn't really thought about running much in that time because powerlifting and running aren't really, they don't really go hand in hand that well. Though I would argue that from a mentality piece, they're very, very similar sports. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I'm drawn to both of them. But I remember when I thought about it, man, I'm going to have to take a year off powerlifting. And I don't know why or I don't know how, but somehow I remembered the marathon. And it wasn't until I remembered the marathon that I realized, oh, in 2023, I'm going to be 10 years out from cancer and amputation and all of these things. And so I thought, well, what better way to do it than to use this as an example of the limitless potential we all hold within ourselves. And everybody listening to the show knows so much about that year. It's the year that we started this show. It's the reason why we started this show, was to have a platform to be able to extend that message and to bring other people on, to bring their messages and to highlight the impossible challenges that not only can be faced and overcome, but more importantly, the people we can build by facing these challenges. But that moment at the start line has always been the same for me. It was the same in 2017. It was the same in 2018. It was the same in 2023. And for me, it was almost this feeling of loneliness and this time of almost mourning, which was interesting. I wouldn't have expected to feel that. Maybe in 2017 and 2018, I wouldn't have expected to feel that in 2023, but I absolutely did. And it's because you're around 19,000 other people.
Yeah.
But what I held in my heart and the memories of what I'd experienced, they were so present with me during that time. And while everybody's celebrating and you hear is it Bruce Springsteen singing that song that they play every time you run across the start line and you see the fireworks going off and it's this big, joyous, cheerful event. All I could think about and all I could remember was, and it wasn't in a bad way. It wasn't like I had trauma resurfacing. It was just all I could remember was that kid who laid in that hospital bed, completely broken, having lost all humanity. And it was mournful in the sense that all I could think about is I have to be strong for that kid. And I have to be strong for all of these other kids that are along the course of this race. And I have to be strong for any of them who may ever encounter my story or our message. And it was just kind of that heavy sense of responsibility sitting on you. And while that gave me so much purpose and so much passion and so much power to be able to move forward past limitations that should have held me so much further back, it was always that same peace and that same feeling at the start line. But 2024 was the first year it was different. Man. And it was different specifically because of the position they gave you and what they created for you. We had heard you speak at the Breakfast of Champions, and we were all fired up for you to be the start and finish line champion. But I don't think we even really understood what that meant. Like, we thought, well, okay, but she's probably going to be posted at the start and the finish line, and we'll get to, shake her hand and give her high fives and cheer for her just the same as we would have all the other patients along the race. But I remember when we started this year, one of the first very different things was I actually had a big portion of my team around me this year. We were fortunate to bring almost 25 runners this year to the race. And that brought so much positivity and energy. And I got to start with them, knowing everything they had overcome in their lives and knowing that they shouldn't be here either. Yet here we all are, about to do something that most of them had never even done before. And then we were all, because we start farther back because we're slow.
Yeah.
So we're all walking up to the finish or to the start line, letting the corrals go past. And then I hear your voice come on. And I was not expecting that at all. But when I heard that, I no longer felt alone, because I was like, I know that Allie gets it. And I know that Allie understands. And more importantly, I know Allie would give anything to be able to be running this race right now.
You make me cry.
Well, it's just, it's the truth. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to feel nothing. I'm going to allow myself to feel happiness and gratitude. True gratitude for the ability to come out and do this. Yeah. And yes, I'm going to be as strong as I can for that previous version of myself and all the kids along this race. But I'm going to recognize how truly impossible it is that I could even be here doing this, and that I have the opportunity despite all the challenge I've faced. And it was hearing your voice that totally changed that start line for me this year. I
love that you took the message how it was supposed to be, and that's exactly what I wanted to do, was instill gratitude that like you're able to run this, and there's people that would kill to be able to move their body in that way. And I resonate with you when you were like, in 2023 at the finish line, all I could do was mourn. And there are times where like you're like, I should be happy in this moment, why am I not happy? But you like think back to like you being in that hospital bed, and like it just happens sometimes, random times.
Yeah.
And but I'm so glad in 2024 you were able to see that finish line is supposed to be happy and full of gratitude, and you were with a community that served you well, and being that person for them, because I'm sure that you inspire them, they inspire you. I really love that my speech did that for you.
Yeah, it did. And what's funny about it is that group of our team I was with, when we're walking up to the start line, we were all going to start the start line together, or we were all going to cross the start line together. And I actually broke off of them really quick because I just told them, I was like, I'm sorry guys, go do your thing. I'll try to catch up. But like, I've just got to give Allie a high five, or I've got to, see her face and her smile. And so I ran off to the side, and I didn't end up actually finding you at all, but I did see Darius. Darius always brings a smile to my face. There's just something about it. I don't know if it's the beard or what, but he just always brings a smile to my face. And so I saw Darius and Star, I believe his wife's name is, and they immediately recognized, and they started cheering, and we shared a moment there, and that kind of sealed that gratitude and allowed me to move forward. But what was funny is the front page picture that the Columbus Dispatch chose to use of all 19,000 runners that crossed that start line was a group of our team members, minus me. And what I loved about it so much is the fact that I wasn't in it, and I wasn't even around my group, but here they all are, just the biggest smiles on their faces. And particularly Jen, who I'll have to share her episode with you, because she's somebody that can face the craziest of tragedy with the very biggest smile. And that was her first half marathon. It's something that she, by all accounts, should not have had the ability to do. Yet she trained her butt off all year for it with so much consistency. And she took the race the same way. She just powered through with consistency, walked most of it, but ended up running across the finish line after having stopped at mile 12 to help somebody who was unconscious on the sideline, because she's a nurse practitioner. And she's like, nope, I'm going to stop and help this guy, and then I'll get back to my race. And she's in the center of that group with that smile on her face. And it's like, when I saw that picture, I was like, this is everything. Like, that's what this race is about. That's what this marathon and the message and all the work that Nationwide Children's and the Columbus Marathon puts behind it. That's what this can do for not just the people spectating the race, but all of the kids that get to be a part of the race, and the ones who get to hear about the race, and the ones who get to see these athletes, and the kids that get exposed to the potential that the human spirit holds within. And so I'm so thankful that you were a part of that race this year, and I'm even more thankful that they created that truly special, like, one-of-a-kind, remarkable platform for you. And I think it fit you perfectly, and everything your message and your passion holds. And so I just want to thank you for being a part of that.
It was an honor. The best thing I've ever done, and I will always be proud of it. And I love talking about it, and I know that I'll probably never get to do it again, but I hope that it becomes an even fuller circle that I'm able to run the half marathon. Maybe I'll be able to run it with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're already registered this year. We've already got a team built, so we would be truly honored to have you run that marathon with us and get to witness you. Well, you'll cross it way ahead of me, but we'll watch the videos later of you crossing the finish line, because I will be really interested to talk to you and get your thoughts about crossing the finish line now, after having gone through everything you'd gone through. Because I think it's powerful. It had to be a powerful feeling before you had cancer or anything, but to do it now, knowing everything you've battled and knowing all the reasons you shouldn't even be able to be there doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, quote unquote, shouldn't. All the limitations you've chosen to reject and move beyond, and all the choices you've made to find more power and more potential and more passion and more purpose within yourself. I think you'll realize that in a light that you maybe never have seen before crossing that finish line.
I feel like it gives like, not, I don't think the word is like a material thing, but like a visible line that you're like, I just did something that I should never have done, and there's like something to prove it. It's not like more of like a mental thing where you're like, wow, I'm in a mental state that I've never thought I would be in. It's like a physical, something you can see that you've actually accomplished. So I agree. I think it'll be a liberating moment. Yeah.
And what's cool about the marathon is it actually is like a personification of your own journey, because when you're starting out those first 3 miles, you're like, yeah, I can do this. This isn't so bad. We're on the straight stretch.
It's almost like chemo.
It's literally like chemo, because it's like, you're like, man, this isn't so bad. We're going through this. And then you hit like miles 6, 7, and 8, and you're like,
oh, plateau.
I am barely even halfway done with this race, and I've got to go how much further, and then you get even to like mile 9 and 10, and you're like, oh, you're starting to feel so close, but then you realize you still have an entire 5K left to run. Oh, and you got to do it uphill because High Street has a hill at that point.
Yeah, the Angel Mile.
Yeah.
That mile, if for those of you who don't know, the Angel Mile is for children that have passed away. And talk about a powerful, moving moment right there. Even when I was doing it at 18 years old, had no idea what I hadn't experienced any medical issues. It was so powerful, moving. I was crying. I mean, I don't know if I was crying because my legs hurt, but no, I'm just kidding. No, I was crying because it's just so moving.
It is.
I'm glad that they dedicate a mile to those that we've lost. I think it's very, it serves a purpose. It really does.
It's one of the very best parts of that race, as hard as it can be. And the thing I always try to do, and I think the best thing to do during that mile, is I really try to carry in my heart all of the friends I've lost to cancer, and especially to pediatric cancer, because they're some of the very, very best people I've ever known, and people who taught me so much about how to live, even though I didn't even know them all that well, like truly, like they were never like the people I'd spent the most time around, the people I knew the closest. I felt like we all understood each other on a level that you just can't put into words, and their memories will never leave me, and the impact they had on me will never leave me. And yeah, when you carry them in your heart like that, especially during that mile, like, it's just going to be straight tears the whole time. But again, I don't think it's negative. No. Like, I don't think emotions really carry negativity or positivity inherently within them. I think their negativity or positivity is purely defined by what they bring out. And in those moments, yes, it's mournful, yes, it's sad, but it brings out this new level of potential and power and passion within you that carries you through that mile and through the entire rest of the race, because it, I think, serves as a reminder that there will be a day where we no longer have the opportunity to run that race. And it could be decades from now, it could be next year, it could be whenever, but there will be a day that comes where we don't have the opportunity to do that. But when you're in that moment right now running that race, you have that opportunity.
I think that is really how I feel about life, honestly. Moving forward, I feel that, even though I may only have 2, 3, 4, or 25 years, cancer's given me that opportunity to live so fully and run it in the moment, just like you were speaking. Live right now. who cares how long you have, or if it's your last marathon, or if, you know, you have 2, 3, 4, 5 more, live it right now, feel that now, you know. It's also given me a lot of purpose and the ability to move forward. Because once you get a diagnosis where it can kill you, like, what do you do with that information? Do you wither? Do you melt away? Do you not feel it? Do you pretend it's not there? Or do you face it head on and you realize that death is, it comes for all of us. It's just how you choose to face it.
Yeah. It helps free you in the sense that you realize there's no sense fearing the inevitable.
Yes.
And so you might as well pack as much of life into that space that you have before it comes.
Yeah.
While you can. And influence as many people as you possibly can in the most positive way you can while you can. And I think that's, while there's a lot of negativity and there's a lot of hardship and there's a lot of difficulty that can come from battling tragedies like a cancer diagnosis, that's one of the greatest gifts that, should we choose to accept it, comes with it, is the freedom from the limitation of death.
Yeah. I listened to an audiobook. It's called The 4 Agreements. Now, it is pretty radical, I would say, in its beliefs. But there was one thing where it was talking about living by the angel of death. And basically means that you live with knowing that there's an opportunity of death, so you live fuller. It's so interesting. You should listen to it.
I would love that. I've definitely heard of that book before. And I think it was one that was recommended to me while I was on chemo, actually, by one of my nurses. There were a few books she recommended to me. One of them was, it's called The Shack. Mm-hmm. If you haven't read that, you should absolutely read it.
You'll have to write it down for
me. It's a book that it focuses entirely on death and like the exact moment of death. But what it teaches you in that 400 pages of that moment is so profound. And it was really interesting for me, the timing that I read it and what it gave me. And we can talk about that more off camera. But yeah, it sounds like it's right along those lines. So I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Allie, I cannot thank you enough for coming on today, for sharing your story, for sharing your experiences and your perspective, and bringing to us all of the passion and emotion that you carry with you on your journey. So I guess the one thing I think everybody wants to know is, what's next for Allie Berry?
Well, I would love to finish my goal of getting a degree. Yeah. I know that it doesn't define me. College doesn't define anyone. And it shouldn't be a goal of, I have to get a degree. It's just something that I thought was mandatory in my life. But now that I don't have it and I'm still living through, I have my job without a degree, and I'm living nice, and I don't know. Honestly, that's a good question because you stumped me. You really stumped me. I do want to go back to school, but and I want to run the marathon in a full circle moment, but I think what I really, really want is to figure out how to have kids, and I think you really inspire me in that way and giving me that hope. And but that's been a hard journey too. So
of everything I battled with cancer, that was the hardest piece.
It's really hard. It's hard to speak about.
Yeah. And oh man, it's what's interesting about it is it's something I never expected, because when I was 18, I don't know if you felt the same way or not, but when I was 18 and I was first diagnosed, like, it was not something at that point was really on my radar at all. Like, it was something they told me was going to happen, but it wasn't something I had given a lot of energy to at that point, because I was so focused on what was immediately in front of me, and kids just were not on my radar at that point. But then, 8, 9, 10 years later in life, when we're ready for that stage, is when I had to face that. And when I realized the reality of it, because all you hear is that line, which I have grown to develop so much hatred for, this line of, oh, there's so many ways to have kids. If I ever have to have somebody tell me that line again one more time, I don't know if I can take it, because yes, there are many ways you can have kids in your life, but they are unbelievably difficult.
Yeah.
Absolutely atrociously expensive, with zero guarantees and nearly unlimited challenge from between start and finish.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you, and what I'm sure other people have already told you, is that, well, I guess I'll tell you something different than anybody had ever told us. Having to go through that challenge, I believe, makes you love and appreciate that child when you receive them infinitely more.
I can totally see how it's just kind of the same thing about having gratitude for things that you like have to work so hard to get back. And I cannot wait for the day that I become a mother. And I feel like for females it's a little bit different. So I've always dreamed of being a mom. And so my grandma was a young mom, my mom was a young mom, and so I always thought that I could care, like, not that I wanted to have a baby when I was a teenager, but I've always wanted to be like 23, 24, like I have a job, I have my degree, and I always just thought like as soon as I finished that I would have children. But they kind of stumped me with, oh, you have to wait 5 years before you even try. And then I have another cancer diagnosis, so it's another 5 years. But what they don't tell you is, okay, well, now you can start having to try to have children, but obviously there's going to be so many other issues. Like, my body already doesn't produce estrogen. They took a whole ovary out and they froze it. And so they want to implant the ovary back in. And they said that there have been natural births reported, but they want to do IVF and other sorts of things. And I'm like, in my head, we're already 8 years now, and I'm just that has been a constant thing on my mind is, will I not get the opportunity to be a mom? Is that not what my purpose was supposed to be? Or I kind of spin it as like, maybe I wasn't supposed to have my own children. Maybe I was supposed to adopt. Or maybe, I don't know. I'm just trying to find a little purpose in it as well. And it takes time, just like, a cancer diagnosis takes time to find your purpose and what drives you and what your passions are. And I feel like in this, and that's been kind of my go-to, is like, maybe that isn't my purpose to have my own kids. Maybe it's to mother a child that doesn't have a mom, because I would totally do that, and that would be something that would interest me. But to answer your question, what am I doing next? I think I really want to find purpose in, I want to find something bigger than myself, take care of something bigger than me.
Yeah,
I think that's my purpose and what I want to do.
And that's the best way to be, however that comes. And we definitely, I can speak for my wife as well, and we wish you guys the best along that journey towards fertility, because we know firsthand how insanely difficult it can be.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those where it's like, it's really hard to find that full purpose and that closure until you have that child. And once you do, I know people have already told you, once you do, it makes every second 100% worth it, but it's getting there and having, I think it's really powerful practice in true faith, like total blind faith, that you have to put everything you are emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically financially out on the table, and just have trust that some way, somehow it's going to work out, even if you approach failure time and time again along the way. But I can see already how good you are with Lily and how much she took to you. Even though she's in a little bit of a picky phase right now, she took to you straight away. And I can sense a lot of that, just like that, like natural, like motherliness in you, because I that's in Lauren 100%. Like that was her path, is that had always been her biggest dream and her biggest passion for life was to be a mom. And the amount of strength and courage and determination I got to witness in her through this process is things that I can't even put into words. And it gave me a sense of love and admiration and respect for her that goes so much deeper than anything I'd ever felt. And now to like see her live out that passion and have the opportunity to witness her with our daughter, it's again, I keep saying this, but you can't put words to it.
Yeah.
But it's one of the most powerful emotions I've ever felt in my life. And I'm so thankful for every single day we get with our daughter, because she is just, I don't know how much of this is inherent bias just because I'm her dad, but I felt since before she was born, and now that she's here, I feel like she is so special. Like she already has this.
She's so cute.
She has this ability to just bring joy to your heart that I can't even put into words. And so I can't wait to see how that progresses throughout the rest of her life. But it's an honor to be her dad. It's an honor to be Lauren's husband. And as hard as it was to go through, it really is an honor to have gone through that journey because of what it taught us.
I feel like it's so similar, like how you're speaking of like a cancer journey of like,
it is, yeah.
I mean, like nobody wishes to go through that, but like the way that you're going to care for your daughter because you went through that, total different. You're going to be a different dad. Your passion, your drive is different for her. And so I think it'll, I mean, you were already going to be a great dad, I can tell, but I don't know.
But that's the key to facing any hardship. That's the key to facing what we would call on this show the impossible. And we say this in a lot of episodes, but we like to bring this reminder to ourselves and to our listeners is, we have this whole mission, which we read at the beginning of the episode, and it's to face the impossible, to be impossible, and to do the impossible. But ultimately, the doing the impossible is not even the important part. It's the being impossible, because that's the part where you go through the process. That's the part where you build the person, you build the version of yourself who's capable of overcoming that impossible thing, who's capable of building gratitude for having faced cancer and having faced infertility and having faced all of these hardships in your life. That's where all of the importance happens. That's where all of the power and the passion comes from. And if you do that, which is the part you can control, the being impossible part, if you do that consistently enough over a long enough time horizon, you will inevitably do the impossible. It may not look exactly how you planned it to look. It may take more time and more energy and more resources than you thought it would, but it will come if you stick true to that path. And so that's why we're so thankful to have stories like yours and so many other incredible people that we've just been so fortunate to have on the show. So thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
It was an honor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Allie, if people want to connect with you or learn more about your story or see more of the work you've done and the work you're about to do in your life, what's the best way for them to find that?
Yeah, so on Facebook, I have a battle page, and it's just a public group that anyone can join. It's called Allie's Battle, And I just basically post on there when I have any updates, how my life is going, how my treatment's going. I would say that was mainly where I would post anything. I also have an Instagram, but I can't remember my username right now. But yeah, so I can give that to you after.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so probably just the Facebook page.
Sounds great. So we'll put a link to that Facebook page in the show notes if you guys want to go and give that a follow and see more of what Allie's doing and what she's going to make happen. And one of these days in the future when she's on all the major news networks showing all the incredible things she's doing, you guys can look back to this episode. So Allie, thank you again for everything you do. Thank you for your passion and your purpose and your emotion that you bring to the world. Thank you for fighting the fight you face in such a powerful manner that gives all of us hope that we may find the same opportunity in the challenges we face. And guys, thank you for listening to this episode. As always, the number one and only thing we ask for you guys to do is to please share this episode with someone you know, because we know that it has the power to help everyone who listens to it. So please share this episode, copy the link, text it, share it on your stories, share it in any way you possibly can, because that is how we move forward in our mission and our vision at Impossible Performance. Because we are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you for listening, and as always, be impossible.